Hello, welcome to Record Time. Record Time is an Akashic experience where we explore simple and mysterious themes through the lens of the Akashic Records. My name is Mina. I'm so happy to be here with you. I am so curious to hear what the Akashic Records have to share with us today, so let's dive in. As I'm tuning into the records, I invite you, if it's safe, comfortable, accessible, to allow yourself to relax and settle in for the next few minutes. If you haven't taken a full, luxurious breath in a minute, you can do that. Maybe softening any part of your body that feels a little tense. And just letting yourself land here right now. So, the keepers of the Akashic Records are asking us, have you lost your magical gaze? Have you lost your magical gaze? And there's almost like a heartache with this question. There's, a sense of sorrow in that. Where it's like, oh yeah, what a loss that would be to lose your magical gaze. What do they mean when they say that? What is a magical gaze? When they say magical gaze, we can think of it as our ability and our willingness of connecting with a sense of wonder in our day-to-day lives. And almost like, right, like the openness to wonder, the openness to magic. The other piece is like our willingness to be open to magic and miraculousness in our own lives. When I say magic, I mean like the miracleness of life, where the perfection of synchronicity, the surprise and the delight of things just kind of clicking for you, where those moments where you feel like you're not the only one efforting to make your life happen, but it feels like life or the divine or something supportive, an unknown, unseen force, a benevolent force is coming to meet you and help you, where it's almost like, oh, that was so nice how that worked out. And it's almost like it doesn't even matter if you believe in magic, in a divine source, whatever. It's almost like, are you open to life working out to some extent without you having to make everything happen on your own? So it's almost like the part of it is like the magical gaze as like our rhythmic connection to wonder. It's also our openness, our willingness to receive the miracleness of life. And it's also like, do you remember, is there a remembrance that you're not making the world spin on your own? And there's a lot happening outside of you. There's a lot of forces collaborating to make things happen, to make the world turn, to make life occur as it is. So it's almost like the remembrance of the like the network outside of you, the ecosystem outside of you, and remembering like, oh yeah, I'm a small piece of the things that make my life happen, right? It's like, oh, there's someone, who works at the grocery store and they, they're there to meet me and help me check out, unless it's all self-checkout. Maybe that's not a good example, but it's like, maybe there's someone who, fixes your car. There's someone who, does something. There's people that help you, right? You have coworkers, you have people on your team at work, perhaps. You have, someone that occasionally will help you make dinner. There's things that happen. There's people that work at the bank, right? It's like you're not doing all of the jobs in the world to make reality happen. It's like the remembrance that you're a part and integral, but one small part of a much, much wider, sophisticated ecosystem. So that's, a few things we can orient towards when we hear them say magical gaze. We can kind of think about it in that way, kind of loosely. I could go on about that for a long time, but for the sake of kind of getting to the point, we'll leave it there for now. So when they say, oh, have you lost your magical gaze? There's the sense of, oh, have you become so mired in like the mundane, is trudgery a word? Trudgery of life? Are you just kind of trudging through life? Like, oh, I make everything happen. Everything I do is because I'm doing it. Or like, oh, I need to do my part. I need to help all these causes. I need to, make sure I'm up to date and like super informed and read all the news because you're taking on a lot. Like, are you taking on too much? Is the burden that you carry a lot? Do you have this like really deep, heavy sense of responsibility that you make everything happen? So have you lost your magical gaze? Have you lost your willingness to receive support? Whether that's divine support, whether that's, someone bagging your groceries for you, or do you always go to the self-checkout because it's faster? So it's like, are you willing to receive support? That's another way to ask this question. And are you open to thinking of life as capable, as able to offer you support? Or has it become a one-sided thing where it's like you just move through life and make it happen? Or there's a little cat here. Do you want to say hi? So, are you open to receiving life support? Are you open to receiving the love and support of a little furry friend? Are you open to the idea that life can be magical? Life can be good. Life can be a little bit more easeful. And so the natural question is, if you feel like you're kind of just like in the mud and like the mundaneness of life, where it's like nothing is magical, it's just like almost like overly mired in like the mud of reality. Not that living in reality is bad. I'm a big advocate of that, but it's like overdoing it where it's actually not. We've forgotten that part of reality is magical, that magic does exist in our reality. And if magic doesn't resonate with you, it's like, oh, that, things can work out sometimes without us making it happen. So the natural next question is like, if we have lost our magical gaze, well, what do we do about it? Can we get it back? How do we get it back? And the records they're like excited about this. They're like, yes, of course you can get it back. Absolutely. And it's not even as hard as you think. So the imagery they're offering us is a lens, like a camera lens. And so they're saying, right, and they're using this language, magical gaze. So it's like the lens through which we're seeing something. So yeah, magical gaze. Have you lost your magical gaze? It's almost like, where is your camera lens pointing? Like the camera lens through which you view life through, where is it pointing and what's the zoom? What's the zoom on it? And that's why I'm doing this. I'm like zooming the lens in and out. So where is it pointing and what is it zoomed in on? And they're saying, if we take our camera lens of life, the thing that we see life through, our gaze, and we've lost the magical gaze, and we're just kind of like in the mired, kind of sad, life is super hard gaze, what are we looking at and how zoomed in are we? And they're saying to switch into a magical gaze, all you have to do is change the zoom on the camera. And so one way that I think is often spoken about is like zoom out, zoom, 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 way, way, way out. Zoom out of like the room that you're in, out of the, house that you're in, the abode, the dwelling that you're in, way out, past the earth, into the cosmos. Okay, now we're there. Oh yeah, life is miraculous. We're like a little speck on another little speck, spinning around a bunch of little specks in empty space, right? It's like that's pretty magical and wild. So that's one way, is zoom all the way out and remember that like the cosmic, gravity, the cosmic scale of everything, and see it that way. But you can also zoom way in, like zoom in even closer, where it's like, oh, if all you're looking at is just life, like what's directly ahead of you, it's like, okay, all I'm seeing is like, oh yeah, life is hard. Like, oh, all I'm seeing is like the next thing on my to-do list and how like shitty everything is. And like, oh my gosh, I need to clean up this room. And ugh, or like, ugh, I'm just like in the problems of life, like everything I have to fix, everything I have to do, it's weighing on me. You can zoom in even more, where it's like, okay, get like the macro lens on the camera and like look super closely at anything. Almost like if you could imagine someone that is like tripping out, how they might like look at their own hand, where it's like, whoa, whoa, every fingerprint is different, whoa. Or like, oh my God, like looking at all of the colors in like the carpet, right? Or like looking at the sky, looking at like all of the fibers in a cloth. You can zoom in, you can look at like a blade of grass as closely as you can and almost like trip out on like how intricate the macro things in life are. So you can zoom in as a tactic. Then the third thing that they're saying is there's zooming way out and zooming way in, and we kind of know those ones. But the third one is not one that we often do, and it's like zooming out just a little bit, where it's like you're not zooming out to look at the whole ecosystem or the whole cosmos. You're zooming out, you're still looking at your life, but you're zooming out a little bit, like 3 years. And this is like zooming out in time. And what they're offering us is looking through the lens, looking through this like magical gaze over time. So instead of just looking at the present, look at time. And something that we can do is think about something in your life right now that doesn't feel magical, that just feels normal. Maybe there's even stuff you have to do, like I have to clean this room, for example. Is there a time where you longed to live in the space that you're living? You longed to have this room that you're in? Can you think back to that time? And what did that feel like? In my own life, there was a time where all I wanted, my like deepest desire, was to have an extra room that wasn't where my bed was. Just one more room that I could exist in that didn't have a bed, that I could just do other activities in without my bed being the thing that like the only thing in the room, or everything like just living in one room basically. And so in this example, right, it's like if we're zoomed in like just in the right now, and the problemness, the non-magical version of right now, it's like, oh, this room is a mess and I need to clean it up. Like, oh my God, it's one more thing on my to-do list and it sucks and no one's gonna help me clean it up. I have to do it all by myself. Like, I have other things to do, whatever. But if I can zoom out just like one click, or maybe two, it's like, oh my God, there was a time not too long ago, a few years ago, where all I wanted was to have another room. And just like that, the magical gaze can come back, where it's like the aim of this isn't, oh, be super grateful. It's recognize that you're living inside a miracle. Is there some aspect of your life that in the past you yearned for, you prayed for, it was your deepest longing, and now you've acclimated to it? Can you remember the time when what's normal for you now was something you dreamed of, you prayed for, you yearned for with the depths of your being? And remembering that, zooming out just enough to remember a few years ago where that existed, where this was a dream, some aspect of your life was a dream. Now come back and recognize. It's, again, you can feel grateful if you're grateful, but it's more like, can you recognize that you are living inside a miracle? That this aspect of your life is, you are living in a prayer that has been answered. You're living in a prayer that has been answered. What does that feel like to you? So that's where I'm going to leave you for today. You can play with that, see how it feels. What does it feel like to be in that space? And what does that do for your magical gaze? So if you spend any time thinking about this, maybe even doing that little exercise, I would love to hear from you. If this inspired something in you, if this sparked something in you, if this offered a little bit of a shift for you, let me know and share your inspiration in the comments. I would love to hear how this landed for you. And until next time, I'm wishing you well. Namaste.